Welcome back to Vox in a Box, the podcast that puts a voice in comics. I'm your host, Michael Corley. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are covering Classic X-Men. Classic X-Men number 69 in this 69th episode of Vox in a Box, titled Transfigurations. And the X-Men open with being sucked into space. There's been a huge hole made in Lilandra's space yacht as Binary, transformed Carol Danvers, has left to get vengeance on the Brood. Cyclops is yelling, "Explosive decompression! We're being sucked out into space!" Which is the best line to open a comic book ever. Cyclops, ever the leader, flies into action. He yells to Peter Rasputin, Colossus, to release his hold on the ship and change into his armored form and block anyone else from going through the hole. Colossus thinks to himself he has to gauge this perfectly. If he missteps, he'll fly out the hole himself, and even his armored form will not long survive in outer space. He manages to grab hold of the edges, and he does not know how long he will be able to stay hold. Cyclops yells at Nightcrawler to teleport Lilandra to the bridge so she can activate damage control. In a nice reference to Nightcrawler's first interaction with Lilandra, he had actually teleported her to safety from the soul sucker or soul drinker or whatever that evil monster was that the evil emperor had been employing. It was also the first time that he had ever teleported another living being. She says that the experience has not improved with age. We have heard before that it is very unpleasant for both passengers and for Nightcrawler to teleport together. She is trying to divert more air into the hangar to give them more time while she tries to get the ship to shut down. She says normally this wouldn't be a problem, but the ship is so damaged that she has to enter all the commands in manually. Nightcrawler is asking her, what's the point in postponing the inevitable? We're all doomed. We're all going to turn into Brood. And she says, well, there's still hope, and maybe Wolverine is wrong. Cyclops is yelling to Wolverine in the hangar to cut loose bits of metal from the hull to help plug the hole when suddenly that increase of air that Lilandra was doing blows him away from his hold. He's suddenly hurtling towards Colossus. Colossus is saying, "Hold on, my friend, this will hurt." And Wolverine is saying, "Same to you, buddy, my adamantium skeleton doesn't break." Whoa! He runs right into Colossus, but does not go through the hole. Cyclops uses his optic blasts, his nearly irresistible force of red beams, to cut loose a large hull piece, and it flies off towards the giant hole. Colossus is able to move out of the way using his incredible strength with a Kang! The hole is plugged, at least enough to stop the massive loss of air, and after that, Lilandra is able to seal the exit from outside and restore gravity to the room. We cut back to Professor's School to Gifted Youngsters, and what's going on? Why, there's a swim party! We see in the distance Illyana, that is Colossus's younger sister, preparing to dive into the water. Watching her is Stevie Hunter, dance instructor for Kitty Pryde, and Moira McTaggart. She has also come to examine Illyana after her transformation into a 13-year-old girl. And Stevie Hunter is asking Moira how Charles Xavier is handling the disappearance of his students. And she's saying he's taking it pretty hard. He's doing the best he can. She remembers what he was like when they first met, that Xavier was such a man, as she says, literally, what a man! And that he's never really recovered from his injury that cost him the use of his legs. He's always wanted to go with his X-Men on their adventures, and he's never been able to. He's been restricted by his handicap. Stevie Hunter is saying that she understands that she was injured while training for the ballet. And in fact, when she stands up, she suddenly cries out, "Arg!" It's an old injury from her knee. And she said that, she can dance a little, and she can certainly walk, but she will never, ever be a ballerina as she had hoped. Inside, we see Charles Xavier in a deep depression. Moira is come to give a letter from Reed Richards. That is, of course, Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four. And they found a young Vietnamese girl who's known as Karma, who has the ability to possess other human beings. Reed Richards thinks maybe Charles Xavier can help, but he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to take on any more students if it means that he may lose them, as he has his original students. She says, oh, well then, fine, why don't we just send them to Magneto? Or maybe Emma Frost, Massachusetts Academy. And he's upset. Are you insane? Those are villains. And she says, if you don't take care of these children, these mutants who are lost and alone and afraid, Charles, who will? Out in space, we see Storm. She has flown off in a personal craft, a small craft, because of the horror of realizing that a brood is growing inside her. She has the ultimate dilemma. Storm will not kill, not even to save her friends. She will not kill. But here's a creature that is a monster that is growing inside her. If she simply lets it live, it will kill untold hundreds, maybe thousands of creatures. But if she kills herself, she's killing the brood as well. What can she do? When suddenly she looks down, her hands are becoming brood tentacles. She screams, no! Her face is transforming, her body warping into a brood. The metamorphosis is almost complete when suddenly there's a brilliant light and she becomes human for a short time. She realizes that she has flown the ship into the galactic core. There are thousands, maybe billions of stars all crammed together. Storm draws upon the energy of the elements. The overflux of all of these stars has temporarily overpowered the brood inside her and let her return to human form. She realizes there's one path left to her. She flies the ship towards the galactic core, and then using the newfound power of all of these stars, she blasts the ship into pieces. For a moment, she glows like a star herself. The energy coursing through her is so great that the embryo does not survive. But neither does Storm. We see her body growing cold out in the vacuum of space as it fades to black. Cutting back to the ship, they have almost got the repairs done, but they have to decide what to do. Lilandra is saying that she is the empress of the Shi'ar Empire, a warrior race. These have harmed her. These have harmed her own people. Their lives are hers. Wolverine agrees. And even Cyclops says, God help us all, but so do I. Wolverine is heading off in the ship when he hears something. He hears prayer. In nomine Patre, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. It is Nightcrawler. He's praying. Wolverine asks him, what are you doing? And he says, well, what does it look like? And Wolverine says, well, I just never figured you for the religious type. Of course, we got an inkling to this a while back during the Dracula affair that of all the X-Men, Nightcrawler truly has faith. We see that around his neck is a simple cross. He says to Wolverine, you might try it, this religion. You might like it. Wolverine says that he did in the army and that it didn't work for him. Wolverine is too much of a creature of his senses. He can't believe anything that he can't smell or touch or see. Nightcrawler says, I am sorry for you, my friend. That must be so lonely for you. And Wolverine jokes, as he so often does at a serious moment. Well, Elf, I got you. Let's go see if there's any beer on this ship. We see Kitty Pryde sleeping. In her dreams, she goes to a funeral. All of the X-Men are there dressed in black. Her mother, her father are leading her to an open casket. She looks inside, and inside the casket is her. The Kitty Pryde in the casket opens its eyes and transforms into a brood with its tentacles. It wraps itself around her and drags her into the grave. She wakes up screaming, no! And there is Peter, Colossus, saying, Katya, 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 do not fear, it is all right. He has come to check on her and heard her screaming. And she's saying, I don't want to die. She's barely 14 years old. And he smiles at her and says, who does? She's angry. Don't you dare laugh at me. And he says, look, I have to laugh. I will not give these brood the honor of my tears. And she's like, look, you don't understand. We are all going to die. And Peter is telling her, yes, we will all die one day, especially if we are X-Men. And Kitty is saying, no, you still don't understand. If I died of old age, that would be fine. If I died in battle even, as an X-Men, that would be fine too, I guess. But to know that there's a brood inside me and that it's going to kill me and that it's going to take my place, that is more than I can bear. They hold each other. And she says, oh, Peter, I wish I was older. And he says, so do I. And she looks him in the eye. So you're not kidding. You're not just saying that to make me feel better. And he kisses her. Colossus kisses Kitty, even though he is at least 18 years old and she is only 14. And he says, however, you are not older. And she says, it doesn't matter. What's the point of playing by society's rules now? He says, it is simply not proper. I cannot do that. Before they can take this little lover's quarrel any further, suddenly she screams, look! Storm appears behind them, and she's a vampire. She smiles at Colossus and says, little brother, how good it is to see you. He's surprised. You're a vampire. He reaches out to touch her. His hand goes right through her, and she says, that's not right. And she vanishes. We cut to Wolverine and Nightcrawler lamenting the fact that the synthesizer on the ship is not doing a very good job making beer, when suddenly Storm appears behind them. She is dressed as she was in the Savage Land, in rags, but beautiful. They're shocked. They turn around, and there she is again. But now she's a child. Not only that, but her hand is not right. One of the thumbs is an adult-sized thumb, while as the rest of her hand is tiny. Even as Nightcrawler tries to reach her, she's gone. He teleports to the others. The others are reporting seeing something similar. They see her again. It is again Storm in a different form. It is Storm dressed as she was when she lived in Africa with a knife at her side. Wolverine is saying that even though this is not exactly real, my senses are telling me it is Storm. We must trust it. The image of Storm is telling them that I am trying to make contact with you, but it is proving more difficult than I imagined. She now appears as the old woman Storm from their time in Limbo. They are coming through the galactic core, and their sensors pick up one of the space whales, one of the broods, space whales, and it is swallowing them whole. Cyclops is saying we have got to blast our way out of here, when Lilandra says there's nothing to be done. All of the ship's systems have become inoperative, and the projection of Storm now finally looking like the Storm we knew in her black and yellow costume, saying, there is no cause for alarm. I disabled the ship for your protection as much as mine. I did not want to risk you injuring the Akanti. Yes, we finally now have a name for this space whale creatures, the Akanti. Cyclops is asking, what's happened to you, Storm? And she says, a great deal, not all of it pleasant. I am not the Storm you knew. And Cyclops is saying, how do you know that this Akanti, this space whale, won't hurt us? And she says, because the Akanti and I are now one. And that ends Classic X-Men number 69. Want to find out what happens with the space whale joining with Storm? Tune in next week, and we'll find out. You have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.